We engage with the kids in our lives the way our parents engaged with us until we decided to. Here's the deal. You didn't choose most of your parenting instincts. They were installed. They're just automatic. They were installed before you even knew they were a thing by your mom or your dad, by what you watched happen in your home, maybe by your grandparents, by the people that you hung out with and what happened in their worlds. But you watched, and whatever worked or seemed to work, that became your default approach. Most of the time, you don't even notice that these default patterns are running the show. You just react. I've seen it myself. I don't actually have kids, but I've seen how it happens with the kids in my lives, my friends' kids. I open my mouth and there walks out my mother, right? You don't notice what's running the show. You just react. Your kid throws a tantrum, your teenager slams the door, something in you responds automatically. Not because you decided in your rational, fully formed frontal brain thinking that's the best way to respond, but because that's the response that you know, and that's the way that you just automatically engage. So if that sounds familiar, first of all, you're not doing anything wrong. You're doing what absolutely every adult who's ever had an influence on a child before you has ever done. You're running on inherited default thinking. The question, however, is whether those defaults are serving you. And maybe even more importantly, whether they're serving your kid. So, everything that we do at Parent Tween Connection is based on the foundations of connection. I'm Clarissa. I'm the founder of Parent Tween Connection. And these are ideas that I came to when I stopped and asked myself, why is it that kids will so often engage with somebody like me, a coach, a mentor, a tutor, not mom, before they choose to go to mom or dad about really important things? In the foundations of connection, the second C or the sixth foundation along the way is to challenge your truths. This means we hold up a mirror to ourselves and we go, hey, what do I believe is true? Is it really true? Do I want it to continue to be true? And is it the only true that I can embrace in this situation? So here's a few beliefs that a lot of us inherited from our parents very much impact the way that we engage with the kids in our lives. First of all, if I stay calm, they'll stay calm. Yeah, sometimes. And sometimes your calm just becomes the wall that they push against harder and harder and harder. So, yeah, staying calm is a great goal. I'm not saying you should, but I don't want you to feel like it's a magic trick that's going to guarantee peace in your households. Okay. Sometimes connection comes from naming the tension, not just managing it. So that could be something like, hey, I see that you're really upset and I understand that's upsetting. And how can we breathe through this? For example, if you've got a little one, okay? Another belief oftentimes that I hear from parents is all the good parents have all the answers. Really? Is there such a thing as all the answers? Number one. And, and does that mean that is that a requirement to be a good parent? This one gets harder and harder as kids age up. When they were like 4 or 6, you might have felt like you had a lot of the answers. And maybe you did. And then middle school hits. Sometimes Chloe is the name of the game, right? And all of a sudden you might realize, wowza, I'm not sure I have any of the answers. Here's the thing. If you're pretending to your teenager like you do have all the answers, his city actually translates to them. And it teaches them that not knowing needs to be hidden instead of talking through the not knowing and being like, hey, I don't have all the answers. How about we find them out together? Another concept, another belief that I hear a lot of parents bringing from their parents is if I give them space, I'm losing them. However, especially once those middle school years hit, giving them space is exactly what a lot of kids need to allow them to come back to you on their terms. Come back to that instead of feeling like they're cornered every time you try to connect. But the key is giving them space to come back on their terms, giving them the space to be themselves independently of what the adults in their lives want them to be. Another common belief that often runs the show for parents as the kids age up is it worked when they were 8. It should still work now. Nope, doesn't work that way. The skills change, the engagement changes, the tools that you use for connection change, but the connection underneath doesn't actually have to change. So here's the challenge. I want you to think of one response that you automatically use with your teenager. It can be your typical reaction, it can be an eye roll, it can be a rule that you give them, it can be a go to phrase. And I want you to ask yourself where that reaction actually came from. Was it something that you decided out of your own research, your own exploration? Maybe you worked with a parenting coach that gave you some insight. Or is it something that you inherited? Now, neither one of those is exclusively fabulous, and neither one of those is exclusively not fabulous. But stopping and thinking about where those beliefs came from, where those actions came from is the key. Because whether you inherited it from your parents or whether you got it from the world's most experienced parenting coach, you get to keep what serves your relationship. You also get to let go of what doesn't. That is the beautiful aspect of the foundation of connection that we call challenge your truths. So ask yourself that. Where did it come from? And does it still serve the relationship that I want to build with the kids in my life? And you know what? Maybe you're not a parent. Okay. Maybe you're an aunt or an uncle, or maybe you are a grandparent even at this point. You could still do this too. Challenge what's working for you and what isn't. And if you're a parent who wants to work through this with other parents who have an open minded, like minded desire to constantly up level the way that they're connecting with their kids, that's what we do in the Parent Tween Village. We are expanding to support families with kids of all ages, not just our teens and tweens. So if you're interested, the link's in the bio. Come on over and challenge a belief with us this week.